that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney, or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today I have for you Book 11 in the 19-book epic New Jedi Order. This one being Enemy Lines, Book 1 of a duology by Allston, Rebel Dream. I actually think the art here is pretty cool. I still prefer the Japanese covers because they're always usually better. But this is actually one of the decent American covers. So, and of course it's Allston. Now here's something also to note. You could probably spell that backwards. That's okay. So, and this one really has almost nothing to do with anything. I won't bring up future stuff that much. All I'm saying is that Allston's the name that, is very big because of the Wraith Squadron series. And moving forward, he will also be one of the consistencies moving forward. It'll be Troy Denning and Allston will be the consistency running through the remainder of the novel timeline, until we get to the Legacy comics. And then the other people change, whether it be Karen Travis or Christy Golden. But the consistency, the thing that always remains a constant is Troy Denning and Allston. And what can I say here? This actually feels like a war. I think Star Wars kind of has this problem in general, where like the prequels, right? You have Episode 1. I mean, that isn't a war, so that doesn't really affect that. It's more of political intrigue, as if you were confused by the plot of Episode 1 for some reason, even though I got it at 5 years old, the everything going on in Naboo is secondary. That's all, like, in the foreground, but the real story is in the background. This whole crisis is just a means for Palpatine to rise. Episode 2 leads up to the Clone Wars, and then we completely skip over the Clone Wars. And we get to the end of the Clone Wars with Episode 3. And maybe Obi-Wan goes after Grievous, but that's, it's the end of the war. And then even with the OT, we get to see big battles like the Death Star and stuff, but we don't really get to see the day-to-day war aspects of that. And that's, of course, what the multimedia project with the Clone Wars and stuff is, where you actually get to experience that war. And while we have been in a war now for 2 years, chronologically speaking, in these 11 books that we've read, it's been 2 years. And so they've been fighting. But at the same time, it doesn't exactly feel like a war in every book. Like the Han Solo books with James Luceno, those kind of felt like an offshoot adventure while war was going on. Stackpole felt a bit more like that, but that's also because he wrote Rogue Squadron. And Vector Prime felt more like setup. I don't know how to describe Balance Point, but didn't feel like a war story, though. Star by Star did, but at the same time it was like this isolated mission, right? And so with Allston's book, Rebel Dream, I finally get to feel like I get to see a little bit more of the war aspect of it. Though even still, it's based around all the main characters, but it still felt a bit more, because that's what Allston kind of does, right? So I felt a bit more like that. Him and Stackpole now to make it feel more like a war, if that makes any sense. So that was cool. We get more development with Jaina, which I think this book handles Jaina far better than Elaine Cunningham did. Nothing against Elaine Cunningham, though she's not really struggling with the dark side anymore on this book. She's struggling with different things. Grief, obviously, but other things. I'll deal with that more in spoilers. But she's dealing with stuff. We have Jack back, we have Kip back, we have Luke. We get to see more of Wedge, of course, because Rogue and Wraith and we get to see some cameos of familiar characters like Piggy. Piggy makes an appearance. We have Face Lauren, Gavin Darklighter. They're all back, though they're not the central focus. I'd say the main characters here are probably Jaina, who's continuing to try to use this whole religion of the Vong to confuse and irritate and mess with their heads by being this trickster goddess. We get a lot more with Jag and Jaina here. We get a bit more with Leia and Jaina kind of reconciling their relationship, which I'll get more to in spoilers. And we get to learn about Tazvong Law's father, which is also interesting. But this is, they're trying to make this. How do I describe it? They've effectively lost, right? Because of Coruscant falling. And they've been fighting as the New Republic this whole time. But the New Republic is kind of dying as they knew it. So it's time for them to go back to their roots, to go back to the OT, to become more of a rebellion against the oppressors, which is the Vong right now, since they're kind of peak power right now. And again, our heroes are kind of the underdogs. Especially now. They've been the underdogs for the past couple books, but, now's their time to kind of try to switch gears. What's funny enough, they call themselves the Resistance. I'm not going to name names, but Rebel Dreams did it first, so. And it's done way better here. Wedge is great, as always. There's a lot of great character moments in here because I think this is true. Stackpole is more of a plot person, though he can do character work, like everything with what's his name? I already forgot the freaking Vong's name. The Vong from the Stackpole duology, and the bird. How am I already forgetting their names? I just read these stories like a month ago. I've had a lot going on. The bird, you know what I'm talking about. Gosh dang it. It's not Calomos, it's the Kamos. I'm not going to stick to this. You know what I'm talking about. Those scenes between them were very traitor-esque, and it was great. But Allston, better than anyone else, knows how to do character work. Apart from a lot of the authors in here anyway, I feel. Like James Luceno, he's not super good with character work either. He is in Plagueis, but he's more of like the political intrigue and connections guy. But as for feelings like investment and falling in love with characters, I don't feel like that's Luceno's strong point, though he can do it. I've seen him do it. In fact, R.A. Salvatore did a good job of that. But anyway, I can do this in a tier sort of. I'm just trying to, I guess, explain the plot without explaining the plot, spoiler wise. And offhandedly, this is the thing that's more important for the next book, but Luke gets this vision and this sense that there's something dark on Coruscant, which is weird because it's now Yucentar, and on Yucentar it's filled to the brim with Vong, who can't be felt in the Force. So what's going on there? That'll be addressed in the next book, which is a very big EU connection, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But it's kind of just set up here for the next book. But there's some really good character development in here. We get to see a lot more military engagements, so if you're super into action and space flight and all that sort of stuff, you will enjoy this book. You get, like, here, let's see an example. You get, like, hold on. Day 2, occupation, day 2, Borealis, So we get stuff like that. But yeah, they're basically at Borealis. They're trying to keep Borealis. They got like a base there, and it's like at a certain spot, which is a big trade route. So like a lot of people leaving or evacuating Coruscant would kind of go through that route. So if they can hold that route, they can help people, but if they abandon it, then like anybody who tries to escape that way is going to get attacked by Vong. So that, and they're trying to keep the appearances of Jaina being this goddess sent to liberate, so all that's going on. Also, on a minor note, Han and Leia take the young Jedi to the Maw to be safe because the errant venture is going to stay with the main military people, so that way they can take care of so that way Booster can help. He can't do that if he has a bunch of kids on board, so they get sent to the Maw, which doesn't really matter now. It's done just so the kids are out of the way and we don't have to worry about them getting hurt, so they're now out of the way, out of the story. However, if you do like stuff post New Jedi Order, this is actually a very important plot point that won't matter for several years, but it isn't very important. Remember the Maw. Remember the kids being left at the Maw. This will matter 3 series from now, and you'll see why this matters down the line. But I won't spoil it for you in case you haven't read it and you want to. If you don't want to, then it doesn't matter. But we can talk about any of that during spoilers. But that's about the gist. I'm not doing this book justice. Maybe I'm just doing a very bad job of kind of talking about what this book is about. But I thought it was a really good time. It's a really good book by Allston. See, now I had a toss up here because, again, it was so good, better than I remembered. I might put it slightly ahead of the Stackable books, but I don't know if I'm going to do that because we still have the scenes. There's so many good stuff in that duology by Stackable, but this is neck and neck with that. This is one of the better books of the New Jedi Order. In fact, I've heard some people say this is their favorite, which is a bit weird, but I guess if they're super into space, combat, and all that I can understand that. But I don't know. I liked it a lot though, but it's definitely not my favorite of New Jedi Order. But it's definitely up there as one of the better books. So again, if you read Dark Journey, you're like, that's all right, and you read like Balance Point, you're like, that's all right, and you read the Lucino books, you're like, that's all right, and you're like, everybody keeps saying these books are one of the best books ever. I'm not seeing that. You just gotta push through and get through to some of the better books. Like this one would be one of the better ones. So stick with it. It's a 19-book series. Not every book is going to be this masterpiece, but they're all well constructed usually and pretty good, outside of Force Arctic Trilogy, which is pretty doo-doo garbage, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But overall, solid book. Do recommend. I'm getting spoilers now. If you don't want spoilers, get out of here. I only have a couple things here. You notice the writing quality of Stackpole and Allston immediately when you start their books, because it begins with this discussion between Tu Vong, which is actually pretty interesting and fun about, if the gods live forever, right, and they're warriors and all that, then can they actually know fear? Can they actually, be a true warrior? It's ultimately not important to the overall story. It was just a fun little exercise in philosophy. It was a fun little discussion that they had about whether or not, if you're immortal and you can kill people forever, are you really courageous? Because you already know you can't die, so it doesn't really matter. Or is it more courageous for you to be someone who's vulnerable, who could die, but faces the odds anyway? So stuff like that. And I don't get to, and I kind of get the point of that too, but at the same time, only thing I'll say, I don't usually bring up real life or real things into my reviews, but I will say, difference with the thing that I believe in is that the person came down and lived as a person, so they'd be able to experience all the things that we would have experienced. So, but that's all I'll say there. I already mentioned kind of feeling like a war. Vicky Sesh is still alive, and we hate her. I believe she dies in next book. I'm really banking on that. I hope so. I don't remember her going all the way through to the end of the series. I don't think she does. But she's still around. She knows that she's kind of useless now. She already helped Coruscant get taken over, so she's just kind of there. And she has to keep finding reasons to matter to Tazvong Law and to not have herself executed. So she's trying her best. Speaking of which, that kid that looks just like Anakin's just kind of like palling around. Eventually, he'll just be like dropped off somewhere. But for now, he's just with the Solos because I don't know. They don't do anything with him, so I don't know why he's around. There's a really good scene where Wedge, the what's left of the council, shows up and they tell Wedge what he needs to do. Powell, the Quarren, is now in charge. He's the new chief of state, and Wedge just right out refuses him. And it was just a great scene. I forgot also that Saba and Alema get some love in here. They're not in it a ton, but they are here. And I forgot how long Alema actually remains a good guy, so that's kind of interesting too. Also, we get to see Cal Tainer, which was cool. But he doesn't have a big appearance. It's kind of more of a cameo than anything. But Cal Tainer's from Raid Squadron, so it's good to see him again. We also get to see Tazvong and Domain Law. Shlakvang La, whatever the fudge. His father. And his father's really interesting too, what I liked. One of the more interesting things about him was that he didn't want to invade this galaxy. But everyone else decided against it. Or Tazvong La overpowered him. Didn't kill him, but kind of took over. I guess Domain Law was the one in charge. And then Tazvong Law took over. So now he's the War Master, the whatever. And so he's just one of the more smarter, like tactical-wise leaders of the... I should scratch that. He is now, because at the start of this book, he just teaches the Vong. Like, teaches them, like, at a school or something. Not exactly a school, but, like, he just teaches on what to do. He doesn't actually do anything anymore. But he gets reinstated in this book. But that was cool. We also get to see Piggy again, which I think I mentioned, but I love Piggy. Piggy's fun. We need more love for Piggy. I'm glad that Allston wrote Mercy Kill, which is another X-Wing book down the line, so we could see more Piggy. And then here's the big thing with Jaina that I wanted to mention. She is... In the last book, we kind of dealt with her. Is she going to go to the dark side? But she doesn't. She remains light. So the issue with her in this book is her fear of loss. Which, again, it's not portrayed very dark side here, because she is not angry, but she is scared. And she not only fears getting close to people, this is also something that was kind of addressed in the original X-Wing books, but is being hammered in here, especially because she had a much more personal loss. She doesn't want to get close to people. She kind of keeps trying to distance people because she's afraid of them dying, and then having to deal with that some more because she already dealt with Anakin and Jason because she thinks Jason's dead, and she doesn't want to deal with losing more people and feeling bad about it. So if she just distances herself, she doesn't have to as much. And while she's not actively trying to kill herself, she is being very suicidal. Like, explicitly so. Like, she doesn't really care what happens to her. And she even thinks, because it's a book, so we get to be in her head. She talks about, not only do I not want to get hurt by people dying, but when I die. Not if, when. I don't want people to hurt over me being gone. Now, I don't know if you've ever thought about offing yourself or just having depression and anxiety and let dark thoughts enter your head like that, but that often does become a thing, right? Where it's like, oh, I don't, I'm not doing it because I don't want to make this person sad. It's because you're thinking of other people, I can't describe it any better than that. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But it was very real for her. So that's kind of her struggle in this book, is learning to live and not just play her part and die, which is kind of what she's planning on doing right now. There's this wonderful moment with Jaina and Jag where Jag kind of went to sacrifice himself, and everyone was telling her to turn back, but she went back and saved him anyway. And she was just expecting to be reprimanded by Jag for doing so. But instead, he doesn't. And they embrace, and then they kiss. So this is a start to one of my favorite relationships in the expanded universe. I mean, it's been going on for a little bit. They've been flirting and all that, but this is kind of the real start of that. So they're kind of a thing. They have no label on it, but they're together, basically. But it was a really good scene between the two of them. Also, his defense to Wedge later was also Jag to Wedge was really good too. And then Jaina and Leia reconcile. Now this is the only thing, because I'm not trying to be annoying. I'm really not. I'm. This book had basically nothing to do with Jason, so I didn't really bring it up. I'm just gonna say. Everybody needs to remember that in the Bantam era, that Han and Leia were some of the most neglectful parents in the universe. Because they were often not there. Because they had more important things they needed to do. Now they did. And it's not that they didn't love their children. They had to do this stuff. But they still left their kids a lot. Abandonment issues. But, Anakin seemed to be kind of fine with it. He was on the younger side. I think he just got more time with his parents. But Jason and Jaina, both of them, don't have the best relationship with their parents. Abundantly clear. In all these books, they don't. And it's only here in this book where Jaina and Leia kind of reconcile that. And they address that. Where Jaina can now understand where her mom was coming from. Like, intellectually she knew, but she couldn't feel that and understand. It's empathy versus sympathy. Like, she understood, but she didn't understand. So that's reconciled. Now, the reason I said don't get annoyed is because Jason has sort of the same problem that Jaina does with his parents and not being super close to them. I mean, actually, at this point, he's closer to his siblings and he's closer to Luke than he is to his own parents. And just remember, as we move forward, he has spent a year by himself with only Vergier. And he still acts kind of weird for the rest of the books. And he spends 6 years apart from them. It's just, when you think about the direction it goes, I don't think it makes too much, like, it would be like a really big contradiction if Jason just had the best relationship in the world with his parents and then started acting up like, he'd be like, I just make it, they've been thick as thieves, what? But they never really were, and that's all I'll say to that. But Jaina has never had the best relationship with her mother. She's gotten along with her father because they have a lot in common. And that's the thing of, like, Jason's more like his mother, but then again, he hardly ever saw his mother either. And then Han, he would come visit at, like, the academy and stuff, give little gifts to all of them. And he gets along with Jaina and Anakin because he kind of just knows them better because he can relate to them more. And so Jaina's never really had a problem with her dad that much. But with her mom, she's had more of an issue with. And so here they finally kind of reconcile that, which is good. And then that's pretty much it. By the end of this book, Luke, Mara, Tahiri, and Wraith Squadron basically Halo ODST orbital drop onto Coruscant to begin the next book. But that's about that. Overall, really enjoyed it. Excited for part 2. And then, after we finish part 2, we get to my favorite book in the expanded universe. And man, is that going to be a controversial book to talk about. But anyway, guys, I'll see you in Enemy Lines 2. Rebel Stand. Till then, may the Force be with you.